You walk into a stadium, you find your seat, you watch grown men get paid to hurt each other for your entertainment. Sound familiar? It should, because you've done this before, not you personally, your species. 2,000 years ago, in a city of 1 million people, this was the biggest business in the ancient world. And the real story isn't about blood, it's about money. Staggering, almost unbelievable amounts of it. The Colosseum wasn't just a building, it was a machine for converting violence into political power. And like every machine, it needed fuel. That fuel was cash. So where did it come from and where did it all go? Let's follow the money. Start with the foundation, literally. In the year 70 CE, Roman legions under the general Titus crushed a rebellion in Judea. They looted the Second Temple in Jerusalem. Gold, silver, treasure accumulated over centuries. Historians estimate the plunder was worth a fortune equivalent to tens of millions of dollars today. For decades, nobody was entirely sure how that wealth was spent. Then, in the 1990s, a German epigrapher named Geza Alfeldi studied a set of holes in a stone block near the Colosseum's entrance. They were bracket marks, fixing points for an old bronze inscription, long since melted down and sold. Using the pattern of the holes, he reconstructed the missing words. The inscription said the Emperor Vespasian ordered the new amphitheatre built from the spoils of war. Your childhood image of the Colosseum, built by Roman genius alone, was missing a line item. It was built with someone else's money, taken by force, thousands of miles away. But construction was only the opening cost. Running the place was where the real spending happened. And this is where it gets interesting for you, because it mirrors something you already understand instinctively. Content is expensive, and audiences get bored fast. A single day of games could involve thousands of animals. Lions shipped from North Africa, elephants from India, bears from the German forests. Each one caught, caged, fed, and transported across an empire with no trucks, no refrigeration, no shortcuts. The historian Garrett Fagan, who spent much of his career studying why Romans loved these events, described the sheer animal logistics as one of the most expensive supply chains in the ancient world. Think about that. Before you even get to the human fighters, you've already spent a fortune just moving wildlife across a continent for a single afternoon. Now add the gladiators. Here's where the finance gets genuinely surprising. You probably picture gladiators as disposable slaves, killed for cheap thrills. Some were, but a trained gladiator was an expensive, specialized asset. Feeding him, training him, housing him, insuring against his death, because a dead gladiator was a sunk cost with no return. Roman law actually regulated gladiator pricing. If a fighter died in the arena, the event's sponsor, called the editor, had to pay the gladiator's owner a penalty far higher than the standard rental fee. Which means, and this will surprise you, Roman emperors had a financial incentive to keep the best gladiators alive. Death was not the point. Death was the expensive outcome. The real product being sold wasn't killing. It was tension. The threat of death stretched out as long as possible, because a living star could fight again next season and sell more tickets. Sound familiar yet? A valuable performer, protected from unnecessary risk, kept alive to draw future crowds. You've seen this economic logic before. You've just seen it applied to athletes and actors instead of men with swords. So who was paying for all of this? Not the emperor's personal pocket, not entirely. This was public spending with a very specific political purpose. The historian Keith Hopkins, in his influential work on Roman spectacle, argued that these games functioned as a kind of ancient welfare and propaganda system rolled into one. Free entry. Free food sometimes. A full day of entertainment, funded by the state, handed to the people of Rome as a gift from their ruler. In exchange, the crowd's loyalty, their silence about food shortages, their applause instead of their anger. You could call it bread and circuses. Economists today might call it something closer to a subsidized attention economy, purchasing public goodwill with borrowed and looted capital. But even an empire's resources aren't infinite. And this is the twist you didn't see coming. By the 2nd century, the cost of games had spiraled so far out of control that even emperors struggled to pay for them. The philosopher Emperor Marcus Aurelius, famous for his private writings on discipline and virtue, was forced into a startlingly modern move. He held a public auction. He sold off imperial palace furniture, gold cups, silk robes, even his wife's old jewelry, just to fund the games and cover a war on top of it. Picture the most powerful man in the known world holding what was essentially a garage sale to keep the crowd entertained. The show had become bigger than the state that built it, and the spending only grew from there. Emperor Trajan reportedly held games lasting well over 100 days, involving thousands of gladiators and thousands of animals to celebrate a military victory. It was less a sporting event and more a national budget line, spent almost entirely on spectacle. Historians studying Roman fiscal records note that spectacle spending, alongside grain subsidies, became one of the single largest recurring expenses of the imperial treasury. Not roads, not the army's daily upkeep, though that was enormous too. A building for entertainment and the show inside it ranked among the most expensive habits of the most powerful government on earth. Here's the part that should really sit with you. All of that money, all of that looted treasure, and public spending, and imperial jewelry sold at auction, none of it was really about entertainment at all. It was about control. A full stadium was a crowd that wasn't rioting. A cheering audience was a population that felt seen, cared for, entertained by their leader instead of angry at him. The economics of the Colosseum were never separate from the politics of the Colosseum. They were the same machine, just measured in different units. You don't live in ancient Rome. You've never watched a gladiator fight for your entertainment, but you've felt the pull of a spectacle that costs more than it should, funded by someone with something to gain from your attention. You've scrolled past sponsored content that exists purely to keep you engaged a little longer. You've watched an event that ran over budget because stopping it felt riskier than paying for it. The tools have changed. Screens instead of stone seating. Algorithms instead of animal cages shipped from Africa. But the underlying trade is exactly the same one Vespasian understood 2,000 years ago. Give people a spectacle big enough, and they will forgive you almost anything. You walked into a stadium once, or you will. You'll find your seat. And somewhere behind the show you're watching, someone is doing exactly what a Roman emperor did with looted temple gold. Spending a fortune to keep you exactly where they want you, entertained, loyal, and not asking too many questions about the bill.